Okay. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. I'm just looking at our list of attendees. I'm sorry, I thought you may have been in a waiting room, but it looks like you're here. So this is great. Thank you again so much for being here today with me to talk about this job search basics. Just getting organized really quick. Okay. And we are good to go. So good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Dehollander. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am one of the career advisors that works over in the Office of Career Engagement in Kogod. So if you were not aware, we've got several career centers on campus. We have a central career center located in the Butler Pavilion, and then we have a career center called the Office of Career Engagement over in Kogod, and we work in Kogod specifically with students interested in business. In my role as a career advisor, I support students primarily interested in finance, real estate, and consulting. But we have other advisors that support students in other areas of business, as well as other majors across the campus. So moral of the story is please reach out if you have any questions. Regardless of your career path, we're going to get you connected to whomever you need to speak with. But today we're going to be talking about some job search basics. So we're going to be providing an overview of a lot of the resources and systems that are available to you. I'm going to go pretty quickly since today's presentation is being recorded. So you can always go back. Also, it's my goal that you leave here today with more questions than answers, as well as some action steps so that we can continue to work together to help you as you progress towards your next internship or job or whatever you may be looking for. There will be some elements of participation today. And for that, we can definitely use the chat or the Q&A, and I'll do my best to keep an eye on that throughout. So we'll move forward. So the three main areas that we're going to focus on today are first, learning generally what employers want. What are they seeking or what are they looking for during the application process for any search across any major or any discipline? We're also going to look at a model for conducting a search. There are several ways to approach this. We're just going to look at a single model and then use that as a framework to advance and move forward. And then throughout the presentation today, we're going to try it and we're just going to see what happens. We're going to try a couple exercises, and then just try to gauge from you all how it feels. If this is something that you would do or something that doesn't work for you. As a career advisor, part of what I do is offer a ton of suggestions to students and then ask them, what did they think? What are they actually going to do? What resources, what tips, what tricks actually work for them? And I don't take anything personally. Part of my role as a career advisor is to help you all identify strategies that work for you as an individual. So I really like this graphic that's up on the screen right now. It shows two ladders extending to the sky. One ladder has many small rungs close together, and the person who's climbing the ladder is near the top. The other ladder has fewer large rungs separated further distances, and the person at the bottom can't even reach the first rung. So part of the reason I formatted today's presentation the way I did is because I believe it's important to take incremental steps towards your career goals. And so let's just work through it step by step, again, keeping those basics in mind. Generally, what I have up on this screen right now are what employers hire for, or at least what employers are trying to assess throughout any application process. So employers are constantly going to be looking for your qualifications. Can you do the job? Do you have the experiences necessary or the skills necessary to perform well in this role? They're going to be looking for your motivation. Do you want to do the job? Does it fit into your plan? Does it align with what your goals are? Is it actually something that you'll come to work day after day after day and be excited to do? And next, they're going to be hiring you or looking for your fit. Do you align with the organization and team? Do your skills the way you communicate, the way that you collaborate, does that align with what the team needs in this exact moment? So again, employers are always going to be assessing your qualifications, motivation, and fit throughout any recruitment process. And at the same time, while you're going through the process as a candidate, you'll be assessing the employers to see if the functions and the roles that they have, how does their operation work? You'll be assessing that. You'll be assessing if you want to do the job in the current environment that's set up. And from a fit perspective, you'll be assessing as a candidate, do you want to work with these people? Do you think that they're going to benefit from what you have to offer and what you prefer your day to look like day in and day out? So knowing that employers hire for qualifications, motivation, and fit, let's think about how we can approach this presentation, how we can approach the job search basics. So one thing to recognize, and on the screen right now, I've got the slide intentionally moving so you can't read it. One thing to recognize is that career management is a cyclical and non-linear process. So it's really easy to think that you can develop one plan and that plan is going to help you as you look for internships and jobs throughout your college experience, and that plan and that trajectory is going to continue into your full-time work, and that you're just going to move right up a career ladder. It's really easy to think that have that expectation, but quite honestly, career learning is cyclical and a non-linear process. So part of our process is always just being aware that things might come in from the outside. There might be factors that we didn't consider that we have to adjust to accommodate. For the sake of ease, however, for today's presentation, we are going to follow kind of a linear path as we're looking at moving from assessing to applying to jobs. So today we are going to look at resources that are offered through our office at the Office of Career Engagement and the Career Center to help you assess your strengths and skills, explore diverse industries and functions, prepare for the application and interview process, and then eventually apply for positions. The reason we don't want to jump right to applying is because if you do that, you'll undoubtedly struggle to show your qualifications, motivation, and fit during that application process. And we just reviewed how that's what employers are looking for. So let's make sure when we're looking at the job search basics that we start from the beginning and that we take the steps necessary to understand our qualifications, motivation, and fit. So by the time we apply, those things are completely known to the employer, completely known to ourselves, and more easily relayed in that regard. So the first thing we're going to start with today is the basics of assessing. So when I say assessing, what I really want to focus on right now is how do you assess or determine or realize your strengths and your skills. The reason that we want to do this is because employers are going to ask you for your strengths and your weaknesses, either directly or indirectly through their questioning or through the interview process. You want to know a little bit more about yourself so you know which environment you'll thrive in. You also can use this assessment to clarify the field and industry that stands out to you most, what kind of organization size stands out to you, what do you prefer. We're looking for ways to make sure that you have increased job satisfaction and therefore increased job performance. So all of these are things that can come out of assessing. So the first thing that I'm going to ask you to do, and this is on your own, is to, and I got to copy this really quick, is to actually complete a self-assessment. And this comes directly off of like a BuzzFeed site. So I'm just going to open this and I'll share the link in the chat. So I would like everyone here to please just take about 3 minutes or so and complete this really informal career assessment that I just put in the chat. And then once you're done with that, please just let me know in the chat so I know to move on. So let's take 3 minutes to complete this BuzzFeed career assessment, and then I'll circle back and make meaning of it. So I'm going to go off camera for a second. I'll be right back. And I'm back. So in the chat, I would love to hear or just see what some of the results you all received are. I received humanitarian. Are there any other results that you all received by taking this simple BuzzFeed quiz? Vice president. Okay, we've got a vice president in our midst. Good to know. Thank you. A humanitarian. Great. How do people feel about these results? Andrew, were politics or government in your initial plan for your education and career? Okay, so questioning these results a little bit, that's okay, Andrew. So Andrew wrote, not sure if they're much of a politician, audio production major, okay. Okay, well, the reason that I did this, again, simple and fun through BuzzFeed, is because I just wanted to show you that taking time to reflect and assess your strengths can be simple, can be fun. There's a lot of tools and resources that exist out there. I just wanted to show that example here, but for the next few slides, and let me put the slides back up here, let's actually dive into some of the assessment tools that we use specifically for careers here at AU. So one of the first basics that you can do to assess your strengths and interests is to complete formalized inventories. Up on the screen right now, we have the best career for your personality type. And what this breaks down, this chart, which I know you probably can't read that, is it breaks down some Myers-Briggs type indicators. So through the AU Career Center, we have access to strong interest inventories, Myers-Briggs type indicators. We have websites that break down how different strengths apply to different careers. Through the Office of Career Engagement at Kogod, we do also have access to Clifton Strengths assessments, which break down some of your talent themes and how those talents show up individually as well as with other teams and groups. And then through the Office of Career Engagement, we also have an assessment that's called Career Leader that compares your your interest, your skills, and your motivations to other business professionals. So one way that you can assess your strengths and interests are through inventories. I should also mention, because again, I recognize there are a lot of links here and a lot of options. I've also made this presentation available through the Handshake event page. So you can download this and access all these links. The next thing that I have, though, another basic for assessments, is this idea of just taking time to reflect. So one thing that I like to coach students on is taking natural transitions, for example, the transitions that occur between semesters, taking that time to intentionally pause and reflect on what you learned in that previous semester, how you grew in the previous semester, and then thinking about things you might do different in the next semester. So before the semester ends and before you throw away your notes and throw away your class syllabus, or preferably recycle those things, definitely I would encourage you to take some time to sit back and simply reflect, maybe a little less formal, but reflect on some of your strengths, reflect on some of your interests, think about how those things have evolved over time or changed. You may also do this by reflecting and asking people for endorsements or recommendations on your LinkedIn profile, for example. So asking group members, asking faculty members, asking supervisors to provide you with recommendations and endorsements on your public profiles is a way to not only build your brand, but hear what people are saying about you. Hear what people say are your strengths, the areas where you shine. Hearing it from other folks might help you believe it and move forward on those things. And then the last thing that I have linked here, and again, I'm not going to go into each of these links, but the last thing that I have linked here is how to conduct or complete what's called a wise wandering map. And that's the image that's on the screen as well. Taking some time on your own with a cup of tea, and some soft music playing in the background to write out the different, just to jot down all the different themes and all the different things that make sense to you in your life. Put it all down on a sheet of paper and then try to identify the connections. By doing this activity, the way that it's outlined in that link, you'll find that you might have some more insight into your majors, the internships you should seek out, the career paths you should follow as well. So I just offered two suggestions, both the inventory, those formalized assessments, as well as maybe the less structured reflection. I'm curious to know from you all, just in the chat, what did I miss? What is one way that you as an individual maybe realistically sit or consider your strengths and your skills in the job search process? Is there anything that I missed in that specifically? I'll just give it 1 minute in the chat, please. What are some techniques that you or your peers maybe have used to assess your strengths and your skills as you approach this job search stuff? Not seeing anything yet, I'm going to ask my next question, which is, and I'd like everyone to respond to this, how will you assess moving forward? So you're here at this presentation, that's great. I'm telling you that employers are looking for qualifications, motivation, and skill. And one way that we can, qualifications, motivation, and fit. And one way that we can present that to employers is by taking time to assess, explore, prepare, and apply. How are you specifically going to assess moving forward? Please just put that in the chat. Do you plan on inventorying, doing an inventory with one of the career centers on campus? Or do you think it fits your style more to stop and reflect on your own? Please just write that in the chat. Do you plan to inventory or reflect? Okay, Andrew's going towards reflection, taking some time. Francis is going towards inventorying and then reflecting, which is fine. Absolutely. You can do both in whatever order you choose. The point of this exercise, the point of what I'm trying to get across now is that you take those incremental steps, just like that ladder showed. Instead of trying to do too much at once, you pace yourself. So great. A little bit of reflection, a little bit of an inventory, and then reflection. Thank you for your feedback there. So moving forward with our basics, the next step that we would look at is taking time to explore. So once you've done some of that assessment, the next thing that we'd want to do is explore diverse industries and functions. Why do you want to do this? You want to do this because college, quite honestly, is a safe space, is a productive space to engage with a lot of resources. I say that because we have alumni and we have employers who are patient with students, and staff and faculty as well, who are patient with students, who understand that you may not have everything figured out right now and you're seeking advice and you're seeking guidance. That's great. Take advantage of that, please, while you're here. Another reason that you definitely want to explore is part of this process is learning what you don't like, what you don't want in a future career. So if you can do it now, if you can do an internship that you don't like for one semester, I guarantee it's better than doing a job that you don't like for years and years and years. And college is also a time where you can start to build your brand through this exploration. You can identify what you like and start telling people that that's what you like. So similar to how we just assessed together using that BuzzFeed quiz, I'm going to encourage us to all explore together. So one website I would encourage you to think about using when it comes to exploration is a website that I'll put in the chat here that's managed by the US Department of Labor. And this website is called ONET Online. So it's free. You can access it. You don't need to be an AU student or a Kogod student or anything like that. And one thing I want to point out here, are you all able to see my screen still? Just want to see in the chat, you're able to see the website. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So the website that I just pulled up here shows ONET Online. There's a spot down here at the bottom that says Find Occupations, and we can click the Browse button. I'm going to give you all a couple minutes, we'll say 2 or 3 minutes, just to click that Browse button. And what I want you to see on this free website is that you can break down different occupations by career clusters or job families or jobs that have the brightest outlook and the biggest growth. You can break down by industry or job zones. I'm going to encourage you, and I'll do the same thing, to click into some of these areas, explore, and just pick one job, get to the description of one job that interests you. So I'll go on mute for a second. Please take 2 minutes, click around, and we're just going to try to find a job that sounds interesting to you at this very moment. I'll be right back. Take about 1 more minute. Again, in a really kind of informal way, we are just exploring different career paths using this free website through the US Department of Labor. We're just based on maybe some keywords and titles here, finding a position or two that really stands out to us based on what we know already. And once you find something that interests you, I'm going to ask you to keep that tab open because we're going to come back to it in just a little bit. So the area that I clicked, or the position title that I'm going to keep loaded right now, is for a career/technical education teachers in a post-secondary environment. Although it's interesting, I saw several categories for us, high school type environment, secondary education, as well as middle school. So in my career, I'd be really curious to compare and contrast these. Does anyone want to put in the chat which profession or job title you're going to keep open for right now, just to, while we're in this exploration phase? Not sure, Andrew, if you were able to find anything kind of in the audio technician world or ecosystem there. Okay. Well, again, this was a more informal way to approach this process. Let's talk about some of the more formal ways that you might approach this. And again, at the end, I'm going to ask you all which basic approach to exploring you would like to maybe think about. So the first one that I'm going to suggest, and again, all these things are linked in the PDF that's available on the Handshake event page for today's event, is to take some time to research. So really diving deeper into the ONET site that I just shared with you all, but also recognizing that on the AU Career Center page, there are career guides by major that provide some suggestions for careers to look into based on your major and your academic program. There's also opportunities to pull up and access job postings on Handshake and to research, dive deeper into those to see what language is actually being used to describe those positions, to describe what they do in those roles, to describe what skills and experiences and qualifications stand out. And then there's also available to students affiliated with Kogod, we have access to a system called Firsthand, which provides guides that go extensively into detail about different career pathways. The reason on this slide that I put up a pack of highlighters as a visual is because I encourage students oftentimes when we think about job postings, but also when we look at any printed description or summary of a position, to pull out a pack of highlighters. If you print those position descriptions, or if you just copy and paste them into a Word document, you can start to highlight different parts of the job description or summary with different colors based on what they're looking for. So I'll often encourage students to use a yellow highlighter when they're looking at the hard skills that a position is requiring. So when we say hard skills, we're referencing some of those technical skills. Again, the technology platforms and tools that are used, just some of the skills that are opposite of what we call soft skills, which can most commonly be defined as some of the communication abilities or teamwork abilities. I'll encourage students to highlight those blue. You can pick whatever colors you want, but the important thing here is that you're reading descriptions and you're further exploring what these roles are set out to do. So it's just an exercise there, again, under the research suggestion. The next suggestion that I have, or for basic exploration, is networking. So when we talk about networking, or what I mean by what networking is really starting to speak to people about your areas of interest and learning more about their journey. So a couple of the things that we have available to you and a couple of the strategies we suggest to build your network is to target your search. Really start to target which alumni at which organizations are going to provide you with the most insight on what you may or may not want to do. One strategy we have is called a lamp list or a lamping list. If by chance, if you're an international student or if you're here on a visa, you'd want to consider some of those factors as well. But developing a lamp list or a target networking list with a career advisor is extremely important so that you're not just networking with everyone or feeling the need to talk to everyone, but you're really focusing on who you'd like to speak with. And then once you've identified who you'd like to speak with, who you'd like to bring into your network, then conducting informational interviews is a way to sit down with someone and really ask them some relevant questions. So part of this exploration phase can include researching, which is what I talked about on the last slide, or networking through a targeted search process here. And that exploration can also include engaging, joining clubs, doing volunteer work, participating in events in different organizations that really allow you to gain some exposure to different career paths. I've listed out and linked again several of the ways you can engage here at AU. And at the bottom, I have some information about our Kogod career communities, or a reference to our Kogod career communities, as well as some professional associations. Again, please speak to an advisor if you want to dive deeper into any of these areas specifically. So I'll ask you all in the chat again, what did I miss? What are some ways that you've explored career paths that you found most helpful? Or maybe something you've observed your peers doing. Is there anything in that exploration phase that I missed? Back up here to the chat. Yes, so Brensis mentioned Handshake. So within Handshake specifically, that's going to be a great place, and thank you for that suggestion. That's going to be a great place to be pulling up job descriptions and job postings even if you're not planning to apply, you can pull up the descriptions, you can read them, research, see what employers are looking for. You can also, and I should have mentioned this, so thank you for the reminder, you can also pull up, you can look up specific employers in Handshake, and reading over their mission statements, reading over what they do, what products they create, what services they offer is definitely going to help you explore some of the different industries that might stand out to you. So yes, Handshake has a ton of resources in addition to the job postings as well and the employer descriptions. Okay. So I'll ask on the next slide for the folks who are here, how do you plan to explore? Do you plan to research, network, or engage? Which basic stands out to you in this regard? Okay, Andrew's going the networking route. Good, good, good. We've got tools, we've got resources for you. Okay, Francis is looking towards research. Fantastic. It's okay to have difference in approach here. Find the one that works for you. This is great. Thank you all. Okay, we're moving forward. I'm just doing a quick time check. Doing great here, y'all. Moving on, we are at the prepare stage. So once you're thinking about basics of job searching, let's review the basics of preparing for the search. So once you've assessed, once you've explored, it's time to prepare. It's time to think about or prepare the application and interview materials specific to the process that you're engaging in. So one way that we're going to practice this together right now, actually, is by developing a STAR story. So when we say STAR in the world of career services, we're often referencing an acronym that stands for situation, task, action, result. And this is a specific formula that we use when answering questions that are called behavioral style questions. So when an employer asks you a question like, tell me about a time you worked on a team, or tell me about a time you solved a problem, they're asking you to tell a story about a time you did something so that they can assess how well or how prepared you are to do that thing again in the future. So what I would like everyone to do right now is to go back, if I can do it, I will, to go back to that ONET job description that you had. I realize I just minimized everything there. So we're going to go back to the ONET screen here. And what I'm going to ask you to do in just a few minutes, or to take a few minutes, and to skim over the position description here. Skim over the various tasks that they do in the position that you pulled up. Skim over maybe some of the skills or the abilities that they're looking for. And I want you to answer the question of, tell me about a time you demonstrated, and pick something off the slide, active listening. Tell me about a time you demonstrated, where can we go up with this one? Tell me about a time you determined training needs of students or workers. Tell me about a time you arranged for lectures by experts in design fields. So tell me about a time you did something that's on your specific job posting. And when you're answering this question, I want to encourage you to go back here, write out your answer using this STAR method. Hopefully you can see my screen again there. Write out your answer by setting the scene, telling us what type of project you were maybe working on or where you were, what was expected of you, what you did to actually solve that problem or demonstrate that skill, and then what was the result. So in 1 or 2 sentences, tell me about a time you did something that's on that screen that you pulled up earlier. I'll give you a minute or two. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. Once you think you've got something, please type that up quickly and put it in the chat as well. We'll take 2 minutes on this one. And this is not an easy exercise, but I wanted to share this with you because this is part of the preparation phase that we'll talk more about. Anyone ready to share a quick story with the situation, task, action, result about a time they demonstrated one of the experiences or skills that's required of the position you pulled up earlier? I guess not seeing anything, I'll give one quick story or example. So one of the things you may have seen on the screen that I pulled up was the ability to, I think it said, bring in employers or bring in experts, subject matter experts. And so when I saw that, I was thinking, okay, can I tell a story about a time I demonstrated my ability to host a panel or bring folks in? The situation I thought of specifically was during the summer of 2020. I served as the interim associate director for our employer relations team. The task that I was charged with was hosting virtual panels because we were in a virtual environment due to the pandemic. So to host virtual panels that met the diverse needs of our student population. The actions that I did was that I connected with 5 to 10 alumni who have worked at startups or early stage companies and brought them in to speak about their experience. And the result was through that, not only did we host a successful panel that has now become a tradition at Kogod, but we've also formed stronger connections with our with several incubators and several organizations in the DC metro area who are looking to hire and recruit students who are interested in working in an entrepreneurial type environment. So by taking the time just now to read a job description and then think of examples, we're actually working towards preparing for our career. So one way, a basic to continue preparing is to draft, just like we did now, to take some time to draft interview responses, to reflect and draft or write down all the different experiences that you've had as they pertain to your resume or cover letters, to actually write statements about some of the main or standout things that you've done. This is also a great time in the preparation phase to develop your elevator pitch and how you introduce yourself. How can you, as you're preparing for future interviews, really in your introduction highlight the 1 or 2 qualifications that you have, the 1 or 2 personality traits that you have that really make you stand out? The other thing that we can do is we can practice. So as you're preparing, something that you might want to do or think about is using the platform that, again, is linked here, but also available through Handshake, called Big Interview. Forcing yourself, or I don't want to say forcing, motivating yourself to sit down in front of a camera and answer some mock interview questions. It's a thing that you can do in private. You can do it in your room in your house by yourself. You don't have to share your videos with anyone. You can see how it feels to answer some questions like the one I posed earlier. So we can draft responses and take some time to write that down in preparation, or we could just go right to practicing and seeing how it feels, seeing what's expected of us. Is there anything else I missed? Anything you all would do to prepare for your career search, to continue to prepare? So we've assessed, explored, and prepared. Anything that I'm missing so far? Francis, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which is using Handshake and potentially researching the organization. So one thing that you can do, if there's an organization or a set of organizations that really stand out to you, is definitely going back and starting to research those organizations so that you understand their mission, their purpose, their customers or clients. Just like we don't want to cram for an exam, we don't want to cram for an interview. We want to pace ourselves through the process. So the more that we can get to know a company over time, the more we can prepare our answers over time, the better they're going to be ingrained in our heads, so we can share that when it's relevant and appropriate. So I'll ask the folks that are still on the call here, how do you plan to prepare? Based on the strategies we discussed here, do you plan to take some time to write out interview answers, to write out some of your accomplishments for your resume or cover letters? Or do you think you're ready to start practicing through platforms like Big Interview or mock interviews with our offices? Okay, Francis is going towards drafting. So yes, you have a resource now. Through that ONET, you can see if you found a position that interests you, you can see exactly what type of interview question or answers you should be drafting, what skills you should be highlighting. And Andrew's ready to start practicing. That's great. Andrew, if you haven't used Big Interview yet, definitely access that through your Handshake resources. And in that platform, you can start to see, you can see general question sets and start to answer those. Or you can also start to answer industry-based question sets. And again, you can record yourself doing this. You can share them with an advisor if you'd like, or you can just review them on your own and keep practicing. Thank you all for your engagement there. Just going to check the time one more time. Okay, we are doing great. The last part of this process, job search basics, is then getting to the point where you apply for positions. So again, I hope you see the value in what we've done to discuss so far. I hope you see that if you jump right to applying for roles, there may be a lot of steps that you're missing, and a lot of ways that you might miss out on showcasing your best abilities to employers. So a couple of the basics here, or one thing that I'm going to ask you to do actually right now, is we are going to go into the Handshake platform and just try to, I just want to show you how you can use the filters to find specific posts or things that interest you. So I'm just going to click this. It's probably going to have me log in. I'm sorry. I'm going to log into my Handshake account, and I'm going to encourage you all to do this as well. Oh, I'm sorry. I decided, nope, we're actually not going to pull up a position description. That was my original plan. What I'm going to encourage you to do is to log into Handshake. I want you to go up here where it says your profile picture or your initials, and I want you to click My Career Interests. I changed my plan here. I want you all, I think it would be more productive right now, rather than looking up specific jobs or internships, I want you all to recognize that you can select in Handshake your career interests and update this system right now with what you're looking for as far as jobs, internships, how Handshake can help, what are your plans for after graduation, and then dive deeper into some of the interest, function areas, industries, and geographic areas. Let's take a minute to do that. You've taken a little bit of time to informally assess, explore, and prepare today. This is one spot where if you're comfortable, you can begin to apply. You can really begin to make those interests known to people who might hire you. So take a moment, let's fill this out if you're comfortable, or at least read through it. Okay. And again, you can come back to this and change this as you are continuing your journey. This is why assessing, exploring, and preparing are important. Every time you do that, you can start to update or adjust how you're applying and make it more intentional. Okay. But looking more strategically, more formally at the basics for applying. One thing that I want you to be aware of, and I recognize that you cannot probably read what's on this slide right here. One thing that's important in the application process is recognizing that different industries have different recruitment cycles and timelines. It's important to know that sooner rather than later, or to take that into consideration, because you do not want to start applying for a role necessarily, or you don't want to be off cycle if at all possible to avoid that. So I work most commonly with students who are interested in finance, real estate, and consulting. And I can tell you right now that the finance hiring timeline, as well as the consulting timeline for larger firms, is very ambitious. So there are times that I meet with students in their senior year, and unfortunately, they've already missed the recruitment timeline for what they'd like to do after graduation. So we just have to think of another plan. But again, as you're thinking about applying, make sure that you understand the timeline for your industry. That's basic number one. Basic number two is considering how you can target your search using some of the platforms that are listed here on the screen, identifying which platform works best for you and your interests. If Handshake is not providing the job opportunities that you need based on your career path and your interests, then it might be time to start looking at some other more industry specific platforms. But what you don't want to do, and this is why I put up the picture of the black hole here on the screen, is you don't want to just be applying for any position that pops up. You want to still stay focused. And what you also want to consider is if there's a position that you find on any other website besides Handshake, always cross-reference that position back to Handshake, because there may be the chance that AU has a recruiting relationship with that organization. And if we can get your resume into the hands of a college recruiter or a campus recruiter, as opposed to just a general HR website, that increases the likelihood that your materials will be reviewed. So that's why I put up the black hole here, is there are a million websites out there. Keep your search focused, I'd recommend, and do your best to connect your materials back to an actual person, in this case, a recruiter at any organization you apply to. And then my third tip, or basic for applying, is to stay organized and to track your applications. One thing that I would strongly recommend is every time you apply for a position online, make sure that you copy and paste that position description into a Word document and save it on your own computer. One of the things that does happen is students or folks, I've done this before, will apply to a position, receive a call a couple of weeks later for an interview, go back to the website to try to find the position and recognize that that position has been taken down. And at that point, you may have no idea what you're actually interviewing for or how best to prepare for that specific interview. So just a tip there, stay organized. When you do submit job applications, keep those tracked so you know when to potentially follow up if the role is something that really interests you, and keep that tracked. So if you do have direct contacts at an organization, you're also leveraging that network for your best chance of moving forward in the application process. At the bottom of the slide here too, I just wanted to list the average time for a job posting to interview is just over a month. So again, keeping yourself organized is important because a whole month can pass before you even hear back from the company or the organization. And then the length of time from an interview to an offer looks like closer to just about 2 weeks, a little bit more than 2 weeks. So again, that process can come and go very quickly. So staying organized and tracking your progress is a great thing to consider during the application phase of your search. And I'll just ask, like I've done on the others, is there anything I missed before we start to wrap up the application basics? Okay, so just like I've asked before, how do you plan to apply? Do you plan to maybe spend more time diving into those timelines, understanding those timelines and making a plan there? Do you plan on targeting your search and identifying the specific platforms that you'll use to identify opportunities? Or maybe now is the time to track or spend a little bit more time updating your Excel documents or your folders with your resumes and some of your networking contacts. What can you do right now to start applying? Okay, Andrew's ready to start tracking a little bit. Good, good, good. Okay, and Brent's is going to take a little bit of time looking at those timelines. This is awesome, y'all. Thank you for your participation. What I really love is that you both gave different answers for each area, and that's great. So kind of looking at the two of you that have been responding, what is your action plan? So how do you plan to assess? I believe, Andrew, you were at that, I forgot to write it down. I believe you were ready to maybe inventory. I believe that was correct. Dive a little bit deeper into the specific descriptions of roles. Brensis, you were going to do a little bit of time reflecting, jotting down some of the themes in your life, thinking about how those things connect. Yep, Andrew's inventory. For exploration, Brensis, you are going to do a little bit more research and start to research roles, maybe using some of the websites that are available that connect majors to specific career paths. That's awesome. Andrew, you were going to explore a little bit through your network. preparing. Francis, you said that you were going to start to draft some interview responses. That's awesome. Start to write down start to recognize some of the things that you've done and things that you haven't done just yet. Internships and co-curricular opportunities or classes can help you gain even more experience. Andrew, you are going to start practicing through big interview or maybe mock interviews with a career advisor. And even at this point, if you're not submitting applications, there's still things you can do to apply. Francis, you are going to look a little bit more into the timelines. Make sure you don't miss any of those timelines so you can be ready when they are live. Andrew, you are going to take a little bit of time to be ready to track either applications you currently have submitted or maybe some of those additional network connections, keeping yourself organized there. And that's great. It's great that you all have different ideas here. So in the 2 minutes that we have left, just some final tips that I want to encourage you all to think about. Stay positive in your search. Hopefully you see after today, we just spent an hour and got into some really great things. You have a plan, you have some incremental steps. Keep developing those SMART goals. Keep developing goals that are incremental and something you can accomplish day after day or week after week on top of the classes and the things you're also already doing. Just remember that there are a lot of external factors at play during any sort of search. Focus on your skills, your qualifications, your goals. That will keep your outlook a little bit more positive. Keep yourself organized. Keep that sense of humor. We all have horror stories from our really bad interviews or really bad interactions. At some point, all you can do is learn from those and move forward. And then please meet with us often. Keep your career advisor in the loop about what your progress is, what your roadblocks are, if there's anything that's causing you challenges. You may schedule appointments with advisors through Handshake by navigating to Handshake Career Center and then going to appointments. I will provide, just because for the sake of time, I will provide my email address and encourage anyone, if you have questions, to please send me an email. We can either schedule time to talk or I can respond to your email and help you on your journey. So we are at 12:30. Thank you again for your time and your participation today. Oh. And you are welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a wonderful fall break and please be in touch. There's my email again. Okay, be well, y'all. Bye. Okay, Sam, may I end the recording?
Yes.